Another edition of Talking Preps. I got the whole crew in the building. It's time for state championship talk. Is everybody ready?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to hit the music, if I can find the music, and we're going to get going. All right, it's state championship week. We've been doing this show all fall since August, and we're here in December. And we finally got into the state championship games. Just Coach Griner, just really quickly, 30 seconds, your thoughts on these 4 games.
Well, I think Chambers redeemed itself against Huff, and now they're going against Gibbons. Can Gibbons redeem themselves from Chambers early in the year? That's going to be interesting. It's going to be a battle of coordinators. Dudley, I think, is just so strong. I don't think it's really going to be that hard for Dudley. I don't want to be rude, but they're big time. And then Shelby's big time as well. We said it last week, they're going to win it, and I still think they keep on rolling. And I think Tarboro is just that team. And I know Mitchell is good, and everybody talks about Mitchell, but, Tarboro is where it's at. So if I get it, that's how that would go down.
I can't wait to hear what Chris had to say about that 2A game, because you're talking about a big-time passing team, and I think the number 1 passing team of all the teams in the state championship game playing the number 1 rushing team of all the teams in the state championship. So if Rouse Rose Hill just keeps the ball, Shelby's going to have trouble. If Shelby goes 3 and out and gives the ball back to Rouse Rose Hill, they could be in trouble. So I think that's going to be an interesting game. I think all of them are really good, but I'm just really curious about that one.
Shelby's got one of the best defenses, though. That's the thing.
They absolutely do. And one of their defenders is going to be on Grice and Chris's fresh faces this week.
Nice.
But Alex, every week Alex talks about Nick Drew. Every single week he talks about Nick Drew. And we got to bring Nick Drew on the show. Nick Drew is coached against 2 of the 3 Mr. Football finalists and won. Mm-hmm. And now you're going to play the 3rd one in the state championship game. So I'm going to let you and your buddy talk a little bit about the state championship game, and we're going to get out of the way.
All right. Well, first and foremost, Coach Drew, welcome. This is Nick Drew, assistant head coach and defensive coordinator at Cardinal Gibbons High School in Raleigh. So let's talk about a couple of things. First off, this game. So you've coached against all 3 Mr. Football finalists, and the one loss was to Chambers and Dalen Smothers. How unique is it second time around? Now, we know it's the first week of the season. There was a huge delay involved, but both teams at this level having film on each other and not having to talk around. And these levels of players, Dalen Smothers, Donovan Shepard, elite defenses, James Pearce, you have Ethan Grice. Both sides. How different is it the second time around in a situation where you have film, but it was first week of the season, literally?
Yeah, I think having more film on those guys, I think it'll definitely help us, simply because we know more of what they're going to do offensively. We had a lot of our games from last year when we played them in the first week of the season. But we also had film of their scrimmages, and everybody knows that they don't show a lot during the scrimmages. In the same token for their games last season, they had a lot of guys that, especially on the offensive line, that weren't there. So we didn't know exactly what we were going to get out of their offensive line. We kind of knew what we was getting out of Dalen Smothers. He's a heck of a back, heck of an athlete. Same with Kevin Concepcion, their big-time receiver. So I think having more film on those guys, hopefully it'll be very good for us come Saturday.
You've retained the old school practice of being a coordinator who still coaches from the sideline. In this age where the coordinators are more prominent than ever before, and we see in college football games where the camera flashes up to the box and the offensive defensive coordinators are riding away and calling plays on the headset from the box. But you continue to coach from the sideline as a coordinator. Why have you chosen that? And what is different about what you can see and do that you feel that you can still be effective as a 21st century coordinator?
I think I like personally, I like being on the field because like I'm right there with my guys. As you probably know, I'm a high energy guy, and I think my guys kind of feed off my high energy. And it's obviously more difficult to do if I was in the box. My first year here, I wasn't a coordinator. I was up in the box. I was just the defensive backs coach. I was up in the box. And I think both areas have, pros and cons. But I think for me personally, I think just being, on the field with my guys, being able to relay any type of information, and kind of allowing my guys to kind of feel where I'm coming from if we have to make adjustments, or, feeling my energy, feeding off my energy if we make a big play, big sack, interception, so forth. So I think, like I said, I think it helps. I think it helps the kids more so than anything. And I'm all about anything for the kids, because at the end of the day, that's kind of who I do it for, and why I do this. So.
If people would stop and contemplate for a second, your resume and credentials are just absolutely beyond staggering. I don't know how many people realize that Coach Drew is just 27 years young, and we're talking about a defensive coordinator with a win over Scotland in the state semifinals, the second half shutout there, 2 wins over Richmond County, 1 in the playoffs, 1 in the regular season, 2 wins over Cleveland, including a 2018, I think it was, shutout of Cleveland with Omarion Hampton, and then another win in the playoffs this year with the second half shutout of Cleveland. That's absolutely staggering all the way around, and we're talking about someone just 27 years young. Coach, what has been I won't say secret, but what has fueled what you've been able to accomplish, just those credentials alone and so many more?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think it is. I've kind of gotten that question a lot, especially over the past, couple of years maybe. But I don't think there's necessarily any secret sauce. I mean, kudos to my guys. I don't do anything special. I don't schematically. We don't do anything crazy. I just think, honestly, I think about my guys. They trusted me. I trusted my guys, and they play, lights out for me week in, week out. Like I said, I don't do anything too crazy. I think it's just my guys. I think I developed a pretty good relationship with my guys, year in and year out, and I think that kind of translates to them wanting to play hard for me. And since they play so hard for me, I would be a fool not to game plan the way I do, so hard for those guys to put those guys in the best position possible, for them to succeed on Friday night. So. I give all the glory to God, man. That's just about it. I don't do anything special. I just call the plays at the end of the day. 'Cause at the end of the day,
you got something.
I call the plays, and my kids go execute it. That because if they can't execute what I'm calling, or what I want them to do, it's all for nothing. So I just gotta give a shout out to my kids and the rest of my defense coaching staff. They do a tremendous job, coaching our guys up. Week in and week out. So
I want to ask you, Coach, what is harder to slow down the Cleveland team with Omarion Hampton, or slow down the Roseville team with the Byron Brown, who's throwing it to Noah Rogers, they're throwing it all over the yard and running it at you? What's harder?
That's a good question. I think it's 2 different beasts. Omarion Hampton, I mean, that kid, he's a load to take down, and especially hitting the back that big in the cold is very difficult.
Yeah.
So that's a beast. And then with Roseville, I mean, Byron Brown is arguably, I would probably say, the best quarterback in the state of North Carolina this year. And then Noah Rogers is a freak of an athlete. I'm sure you guys will watch the game Friday night. He had 4 or 5 just freakish catches, and our guys were in the right position. But he just out-athleted him and made a heck of a play. So I think. That's a tough answer. I think as from the coaching perspective, defensive coordinator perspective, I think Roseville gives me more headaches just because they kind of had a 3-headed monster with Byron Brown, their running back. I think I can't remember his name, and then Noah Rogers. Those 3 guys were
Antonio Krim.
Yep, Antonio. Yep, number 6. Between those 3, it was a nightmare to try to prepare for. Because, 17 can make plays on his feet through the air. 17, all you got to do is throw it up to him. Throw it up to 5, and then 6 can break it at any point as well. So, whereas with Omari in Cleveland, I know Skylar Locklear, he was a very dynamic quarterback. I think we did a pretty good job of kind of bottling him up, but 28 was a load in himself, so that was also a big task. He kind of killed us in the first half, and kudos to him and his coaching staff, his offensive line. They did a great job, but we made a few adjustments.
They have all the gizmos. Cardinal Gibbons, they got like 9 different cameras from different angles. They have like a computer that like came from the movie Twister, where it gets all this data. And so at halftime, it's unbelievable.
Sam, you're a defensive guy. If this guy can beat Hampton, Brown, and Smothers in 3 weeks, what would that say?
It'd be one of the best things I've seen from a defense coordinator in a long time. Since Hackett did it the year where their first year when they won the championship, it advanced. Now Chambers, that was a very special run defensively, and this would be the next best right here, I think, or it could top it depending on how well they play Saturday. I think the new young guns is where it's at, though. Like, both of my coordinators are 26, 27. They can dance with the kids. Those old guys, man, our bones don't work the same. You know what I'm saying?
Coach, you don't look that old. You don't look that old.
Don't tell me I look old. Oh, God.
He's a little older than you.
Oh, I'm way older. Yeah, I'm way older. I'll be 40 in February. Yep.
Well, Nick Drew, thanks for coming on, man. We hear about you every single week. You got a big fan in Alex, and best of luck to you guys up in Raleigh, okay?
Well, I appreciate you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, you too.
All right, guys. So tomorrow we're going to name the Mr. Football Award tomorrow. And we're going to talk about the finalists. I'll let Alex talk about the finalists because I guess you guys kind of know what's going on. But Alex, I want to get your reactions to the finalists when we get back on the other side. All right, Alex. Finalist number 1, Byron Brown. Phenomenal season, 5,000 yards of offense, led his team to the state semifinals. He's been the finalist twice in about 8 months now. What are your thoughts about him?
Yes, he has. I have had the opportunity to watch him several times in person, including in last week's Eastern Regional Final. First off, just absolutely elusive. Containing him in the pocket is, wow, just amazing. You're very, very slippery, if you want to say that. You cannot – he's going to find a way to make a play. And the other thing about Byron Brown that stands out to me is beyond what he does on the field is his ability and desire to cultivate other leaders on the team.
Okay.
He's a vocal leader and a leader by example. But one of the most important things he's done this year is cultivate Noah Rogers to be more vocal himself and prepare to hand off that leadership mantle to Noah Rogers next year. So he is a leader by example, but in the words of Martin Samick, the Rolesville coach, he gets others to step up as well.
All right.
All these guys.
Tell me about the next guy, Marion Hampton. We just had Coach Drew talk about him a little bit. It's hard to tackle that big back in the wintertime. You've seen a lot of him as well. 1,948 yards, 39 touchdowns. Today he was named the North Carolina Gatorade Football Player of the Year. Sam's had a Gatorade Football Player of the Year, Kavaris Crouch, and let's see who else. Jalen Walker was last year. Sam Howell's been Gatorade Player of the Year. It's a nice crowd of folks there. What do you think about Marion?
I've had the privilege of watching him several times, and just he's built as a football player. And what I mean by that, we see him and think of him as a running back. But this is the same kind of kid who wants not just, oh, he can do it. No, he wants to be in at linebacker when it's on the line. And he physically is able to do that. So to have the physical skill, the physical tools he does with the mentality of being one who desires to be in that situation. He wants to be on both sides of the ball, and he's proven that he can do it. Just takes him to another level. And obviously he's very tough to bring down. But once again, he's a leader by example. I had a chance to spend some time with him, and a young man of very few words.
Yeah, he doesn't say it a lot. But this third guy does talk a lot. Hollywood Smothers. What do you think about him?
Hollywood is a fitting name. He's ready for the big time. He is. He is an elite tailback. He literally is in the conversation. You want to talk about the greatest that North Carolina ever has had at the high school level, and we won't single out anyone, but if you have that conversation and start throwing out names like Nick Maddox and Anthony Barber, and you go on, he is in that conversation.
Wow.
His vision and his footwork are second to none. They were elite as a sophomore. They've gotten better as a junior. Jalen Smothers is the real deal, period.
Sam says he's the best zone runner he's ever seen. Isn't that right, Sam?
To a higher level.
Yeah,
don't you say that, Sam?
He's the best outside zone runner I've ever seen.
Outside zone runner. I knew it.
Yeah, outside zone. I mean, he can run it all. He's powerful inside, but I mean, we've seen some guys like Kavaris Krause is really good running the ball inside, but I would put him, if you get him on a stretch type play outside zone, he's able to put his foot in the ground early, or he can take it to the edge, and he has great vision for that, and it's special. I mean, I have never seen anybody like that. I think that when he chooses a college, he needs to really evaluate how whatever team he's thinking about going to, how well do they run the outside zone? You know, you got the NC States of the world, that's all they do. You got Louisville does it a lot. There's some other schools. So he's so good at it, I would love to see what he does in college with it.
Absolutely. Well, before we turn to Guru and Chris loose on the state championship games, we have the very best state championship preview you're going to find anywhere in the state. We got to find out who the top players last week is Grice and Chris picked out on the Grice's gym. So we're going to drop that, and then we'll let the guys get off when we get back.
Well, Grice, here we are. One more week to go here in the 2021 state championship, or the 2000 season of state championships are upon us. But we had some incredible guys ball out for their teams to get them over that hump to the state championship game. One more week here of Grice's gyms. Look at this is a who's who list of players in this state, buddy.
Oh, this time of year, it's going to be the best of the best. We talked about it last week with the cream rising to the crop. Hey, this was for the game to get to the state championship game. You're relying on your guy. If he's really your guy and you guys are out there really balling, and you're going to get the call if you are truly one of Grice's gyms. We got some alum here. We got some guys that if they hadn't been, they dang well should have been Grice's gyms. Glad that they're on here.
We're going to start with the guy that you and I both stood on the sidelines and watched on Friday night, James Pearce, defensive end at Chambers High School. Very rarely do I say that I see a high school guy project to possibly be an NFL guy, but he has that talent. He has that pedigree. He has that speed off the edge. This guy is amazing. These are some old highlights, but tell us about James Pearce and what we saw Friday night.
I mean, old highlights, new highlights, it's the same thing. I mean, this guy's just dynamic. I don't think we have enough stats for defensive guys like him, the way he impacts the game. He forced a Huff fumble, to kind of end the game. It's just like a knockout blow. He had the forced fumble, the fumble recovery, and the touchdown, the triple-double, no assist. He had, I guess, 2 sacks ultimately, fumble recovery, 3 passes batted down, 2 tackles for loss, a number of holding calls, a number that should have been called, QB pressures. I mean, there are so many things in that game that he was able to impact and frustrate QB Tad Hudson for Huff, and was a major reason why they were able to get the victory. So he's a Grice's gym. Like I said, we got to get some extra stats, Guru. We got to get some extra stuff for him, because the things that he did in that game were amazing and should be rewarded as such. So he definitely balled, and you knew he was going to get the call there.
Quite honestly, to me, James Pearce looked like that guy on Madden football or the old NCAA football on EA Sports, where you had maxed his numbers out to 95, put some cheat codes in because he was that dynamic coming off the edge. And by the way, Coach Farabee also put him out at wide receiver a few times, and really you had to see that a defense adjust to what he was doing. Impactful player on both sides of the football. I think that young man can play just about any position on the field. He is that special.
Oh, definitely. I don't want to tackle him as a quarterback either. So he can do a lot of great things. Glad he got the chance to ball and get the call. Good job.
All right. Well, this next man, we're going to get another defensive player. Hey, Coach Griner, we're doing that for you, buddy. But Shelby High School, Jaden Pearce, defensive lineman, had a 10-yard fumble recovery for a score in their 45-13 victory over East Surrey in their regional final. What do you see in this guy right here?
Oh, my goodness, man. Look at the big boy screen. Yeah, you saw him rumble for a touchdown there, Guru. Like, I just love it. I mean, they were dominant in this game. And, I mean, we know Shelby's a dominant program, but in the regional final, they treated it like week 5. They just, did a great job. You saw them, standing the offensive lineman up, shedding the block, making the tackle. Just seeing the two powerhouse programs that they just dispatched pretty easily in Reedsville and East Surrey. I mean, he's a big reason why we talk about all these other guys. Glad we could get Jaden Pearce on here as a Grice's gym. Great job. No surprise there. They're packing the state title game.
Oh, well, this next young man right here coming into his regional final game was leading the state in touchdowns with 48 rushing touchdowns. Oh, by the way, he added 5, ran for 355 yards and 5 touchdowns in the 34-25 victory of Wallace Rose Hill over Princeton. And I'm talking about Kanye Roberts. This guy has looked like talk about some cheat codes. He looked like he was on a different level playing Friday night.
Oh, if you've been watching this show and you don't know who Kanye Roberts is, shame on you. I mean, we've talked about this guy ad length, ad nauseum all year. He is just burst on the scene and just, again, 355 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's getting the ball. We all know he's getting the ball. My favorite phone booth football, whether you're on the 50 or you're inside the goal line, he's getting in and he maintains his dominance. And it was a big-time game in the win over Princeton. And again, scores 34-25. They needed every yard and every touchdown from him in this big-time game to be successful. So great, kudos to him. Great job. He's going into the state title game. I can't wait to see that matchup against Shelby. It's going to be a fantastic game.
Yeah, I love that big bulldog right there in the end zone. You see all those people around the sidelines. That's old school football. I love it packed in. It had to be a great environment for football. Congratulations to you, Kanye Roberts. You're at Grice's gym. Good luck in your championship game on Friday. Another game that elevated his team to a state championship was Greensboro Dudley's Micaiah Wall. Game opening kickoff return for a score, had an interception, really did a lot to lead his team to that 38-0 shutout victory over South Point. It's been a long time since South Point had been shut out, but this Dudley team and Micaiah Wall was for real.
Oh my goodness, man! They were dominant in this game. I mean, I don't know how much more you can set the tone. Had a game-opening kickoff return for a score and an interception in this game. I mean, he's one of the most dynamic players for that Dudley team, and that Dudley team has a huge list of impact players. It's funny. I saw Guru on one of the message boards. They put a picture of him being a ball boy for the Dudley Panthers the last time they went to state. He's now one of the most impactful players on that team and a big reason why they're going to state again. Kudos to Micaiah Wall. He's been doing it all year. I got to see him in the scrimmage, beginning of the year. And I said to myself, if that was a taste of what's to come this year, 3A is in trouble. Well, I saw I was right.
Well, this final player that we're going to showcase here on Grice's gym comes from Greenville Rose. I took a lot of slack when I had Greenville Rose as the preseason #1 in the 3A. They lost 3 games in a row to start the season. I know that Michael Allen was on our preseason Mr. Football list, but he ran for 153 yards and 4 touchdowns in that big-time victory over Jacksonville to take their team back to the state championship. It's been a couple years since Rose was in it, but man, look at him run. He's had the NC State. That's going to be a big acquisition to Coach Dave Dorn.
That is a grown man running that ball. My goodness. 153 rushing yards and 4 scores on 17 carries. That's impactful right there. I mean, just a big, good-looking kid. I mean, we talk, like I said, Guru, hey, take your credit. A lot of people gave you crap about it, but they're there. Hey, like I said, a big-time win, big-time player. Michael Allen definitely shows you exactly why he's at Grice's gym. Just great, great athlete, great player. Good job.
Well, that's it for this week's Grice's Gyms. So there you see them again: James Pearce, Jaden Pearce, Kanye Roberts, Micaiah Wall, Michael Allen. Some great young-looking players that had insane performances on Friday. Hey, we got one more chance to do this. We know that you're going to see some guys ball out in these state championship games. All the gold is on the line. You're playing for those big rings on the fingers. These guys are going to play their hearts out.
Oh, got one more time, man. Guys, go out there, give everything you've got this week. Hey, want to see you guys do it, do it big in these games. If you ball in this type moment, hey, we know the glory, the rings, the honor, the legacy, all of that is yours. So good luck to everyone playing in state championship games this week. Grice's Gyms.
All right. For Coach Grice, I'm the guru. This is Grice's Gyms, and we got one more week to do it, so we'll see y'all next week.
Man, the ratings always go up when Grice's Gyms come on. All right. No matter what you're doing right now, sit down, take a seat, call your friends, tell them to tune in. And we're going to turn the Guru and Grice loose to start. First, we're going to do the rankings, then we're going to do the state championship preview. And Sam and Alex can chime in. It's going to be the best preview you'll get anywhere, I promise you. So let me drop Chris's music and let him get to work.
All right, guys. Well, like we said, we got one more week of football left, and we've been doing rankings all throughout the year. Not only the top 10 here with the Charlotte Observer, but also the extended top 25 and beyond that I put out each week as well. And like a lot of coaches say, it doesn't matter where you're ranked until the end of the season. Well, hey, we got one more week to go. Let's find out who's going to be ranked on the top. We'll start right here at the 1A. Obviously, there's no surprise. The Tarboro Vikings playing in their 5th straight state championship game. Right there, number 1, Mitchell, playing in their first state title game since 2010. That game will be a big timer on Saturday. Robbinsville, great season. Pender, phenomenal. Mount Airy right there, North Side, Murphy, Northampton County, Eastern Randolph. They were number 1 most of the year. South Side, but there can only be 2 remaining standing. We'll see who settles it out for number 1 this coming Saturday.
Oh, it's going to be such a good game. I mean, I think, with that 1A, you really haven't had those guys be challenged too much. I mean, I think last week with Tarboro and Pender, was kind of the first game you noticed that, all right, they're getting a little bit of a challenge. But these 2 teams, whether it's Mitchell, well, I think it's won 11 in a row, and Tarboro, we know all about them. It's going to be an exciting matchup, and somebody's got to come out on top. So, excited for Coach Craddock to get back again and show what he can do.
And let's take a look at the 2A. Again, no surprise right here, the top 2 teams. The 2 teams playing on Saturday afternoon. Shelby right there, number 1. Wallace Rose Hill right there, number 2. These teams, though, again, I want to call them out because they've had phenomenal seasons, great players, great coaches, great communities. Princeton, Reidsville, East Surrey, great year for East Surrey. Maiden, Northeastern, St. Paul, Salisbury, Whiteville. Again, all great teams. Some strong programs too, Alex. So what do you think about this?
Very, very strong programs. But as I've said all along, this is tradition versus tradition right here. And that's really what it comes down to. Wallace Rose Hill, we can talk about them for years on end and what they were able to accomplish during the time of whether we're talking Joey Price, whether we're talking the Jack Holly year,
great Jack Holly,
whether we're talking what Kevin Motzinger has been able to do. I mean, we could go on and on about that. And the Bulldogs of Teachey are back in the game again. But at the same time, I don't think there's any reason to prolong discussing the reality that I think in this case, Shelby is just too good. And when you get in a situation where you look at what Shelby has done in dispatching the last 2 programs it dispatched at this point in the season, I don't think there's a whole lot to say. So congratulations to both teams getting there. And Wallace Rose Hill is going to give the best game that can be given of anyone at this point in the season. But I think Shelby's just too good.
Well, I've got some pros and cons for both of them. I would not give up on either of them. I think
Kanye, baby. Come on, man.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that here in a moment. Let's just take a look here at the 3A rankings. Again, I had mentioned there in Grice's Gyms that Rose was my preseason number 1 and Dudley was number 3. So at least I got those 2 right. Still going coming into Saturday. This will be a Friday night game, by the way, over at Keenan Memorial Stadium. Look forward to that one. Jacksonville, they had all those overtime games down the stretch. Phenomenal year for Coach Bo Williams and the Cardinals. Eastern Alamance, phenomenal year. South Point, it didn't show it on Friday night against Dudley. I think most of us knew that Dudley was probably a little bit stronger going into that game. Statesville, great year. Crest, Scotland, Northern Nash. Northern Nash probably had the best year they've ever had. I mean, phenomenal year for all those guys up there. Very happy for them. 71st. Again, they played tough football down there in Fayetteville.
I think those top two teams are the cream of the crop. And again, as you said, Guru, you haven't been surprised. I mean, looking at 3 to 10, like you stated, like that, those programs had amazing years. And I mean, if Dudley and J.H. Rose weren't there, we could be talking about some programs making unprecedented moves in the 3A state title game. But alas, the cream of the crop still is there, and we're treated with the Dudley J.H. Rose final.
Yep. And let's take a look here at the 4A finals, 4A rankings. Chambers moving up number 1. Cardinal Gibbons right there, number 2. Huff certainly did not fall far. East Forsyth, I think that there is a definite top 4 that just lead the way. Rollsville is hot on the tails there in 5th. Starting the way the season did for Rollsville, they went out and played a who's who schedule of teams, a real true gauntlet of some tough teams. So kudos to Coach Martin Samick and that program for scheduling hard. I think it certainly paid off for them down the stretch in the playoffs. Again, Cleveland, Marion Hampton, Skylar Locklear, Coach Scott Riley, great year. Weddington, Leesville Road. Leesville Road had a phenomenal playoff run, knocking off Richmond County. Kudos to them. Solid year. Panther Creek as well. Coach Sean Crocker, phenomenal job over there in Cary. Millbrook, I think Millbrook, obviously, they got some young talent coming up. I think that they'll be back. But Grice, I'll turn it over to you. Thoughts?
The Fight Club earns its name. I mean, I think the biggest thing, Alex has this get on D. Hey, mine is play somebody. I mean, I think, we see that Rollsville definitely benefited from a tough early schedule. They came on, Byron Brown came on as one of the hottest teams, I think, towards the end of the year, of course, falling, just short. I still can't believe what I watched with Chambers Huff. I mean, I know we haven't had a reaction conversation, but one of the most phenomenal games, and, glad to share it with Guru and Griner. But, these top 4 teams, I think, are well worthy, as are these the ones below.
Yeah,
I have one thing to say, Sam, before you talk.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked all year about the West being better than the East, and Chris has 6 teams from Raleigh ranked in the top 10, Raleigh area ranked in the top 10. Just want to say that, but go ahead, Sam.
That's just because he lives closer to that area and he wants to get to the track.
Oh, God. Here we go. Here we go.
I'm going to tell you right now, Huff, East Forsyth, they're pretty much connected to us. They're close to us. Dudley's close to us, stuff like that. But Huff, East Forsyth, I think they would win the state championship in South Carolina. I think they would. We have like 4 teams that can legitimately win a state championship.
All right, well, hold that thought, because that's later. Hold that.
I gotta give it to Sam. I mean, he is the ultimate conference guy. I mean, Sam, like he talked about last week, how there aren't a lot of college coaches like these guys aren't necessarily smarter than Sam Griner and Jonathan Grice, but furthermore, Sam is showing his prowess for understanding, just like college coaches know they have to talk up their conferences in the name of revenue sharing. Sam Griner is the man.
Griner, hold on, Griner. We face Gaffney. We face Huff. You are not far off. You are not far off. I'm set up the straightest face in the world. Face
okay, Grice. That's later. Hold on, that's later.
I'm sorry.
We'll get to it.
Everybody calls Griner crazy. I call him crazy too. I want to make sure I stay with him. We got far off base.
Debate coming up later on. All right, it's time to let Guru preview these games. We've been talking about it on Twitter, and everybody's been texting me. What's he going to say? I'm just turning him loose, let him talk. But before he goes, we have interviews from both coaches of each division, so we let them talk, and we let Chris talk.
We're going to have to play lights out defensively this Saturday afternoon. There's no question about it with this big physical Mitchell team. They're good, and we got to play great. But we'll work hard and we'll do the best we can within our defensive scheme. But they've really come on. We've played, in my opinion, some really good physical offenses the last couple of weeks. I know there's been some talk about the East being a cakewalk. Well, I can promise you what, the East has not been a cakewalk at all. We have played some really, really good football teams. Now, obviously, Mitchell's going to be better than any of them, as it should be in the state title game.
We're just excited about being part of the state championship this year. We've been very fortunate in the playoffs to catch some breaks. We've also played really well throughout the playoffs. We started out the season searching for a game in week 2 and ended up playing a 4A team down in Lake Norman High School. I think that, us just going and playing a team like that right off the bat helped us mature maybe a little quicker than we wanted to. And then we suffered a couple of losses also right there in the first 4 games that also made us a more dynamic of figuring out where we needed to be at position-wise and who we needed to rotate around. We had some injuries at the first of the year also that also changed how we played and what we needed to do. And as the season grew, we grew into different ways of how we aligned and how we played position-wise, and it's fell into our lap, and we've got better throughout the year.
All right, Guru, it's on you.
All right. Well, hey, I guess we're going to start right here with the 1A. You see it right there, Tarboro versus Mitchell. Tarboro, right? Excuse me. Tarboro's got their 11 state championship appearance, 7 state championships, going for 8. It's phenomenal. I remember the very first one they won. It was a cold day right here in Kannapolis in 1984. I held A.L. Brown to 0 first downs. Key players right there, Tobias Joyner. I like him a lot. Amarion Lewis, Amari Battle. Amari Battle has really impressed me. Young man's got 122 tackles. Really, him and Quintavious Jones is really just the epicenter of a phenomenal defense there. I've coached Jeff Craddock. Tarboro making their 4th straight championship appearance. So, Tarboro is what they are. They run that powerful Tarboro T going against Mitchell. And Coach Jeff Craddock said it. Mitchell is a very, very physical football team. They were in the state championship game in 2015, lost 48-28 to Wallace Rose Hill in that one. Ty Tuberfield, he's a junior. He will certainly be amongst the who's who list of the best quarterbacks in the state in this upcoming year. 3,500 total offensive yards. I think passing, he's got something like 2,302 rushing with 42 rushing touchdowns. Gabe Bryant right there with 135 tackles. They also got a guy that I really like, though, a lot that has impressed me looking at the film, and I really just wanted to say this name because I've been studying him all day, and it is Enrique Huroko. That guy right there has like 116 tackles coming into this game. Mitchell, Coach Travis Pittman, they play up there on the mountain there in Ledger outside of Bakersfield. Phenomenal football team. Just to throw it out there, this is going to be 2 purple teams going after it. It's always like those little unique nuggets like that.
Yeah.
Mitchell's won 11 straight games since starting the year 2-2. Went on the road and played a tough Andrews and beat them. That's kind of started that slide. So I think this is just going to be a phenomenal football game.
All right. Well, let's see. Anybody have comments on that before we go to 2A? We good?
You realize that the significance of the purple is very, very fitting, because we are crowning royalty this weekend.
That's right.
Purple is
Yes, sir.
royalty.
Well, one of the final games I'm most interested in seeing, fellas, is that 2A game between Shelby and Wallace Rose Hill. Let's hear from the coaches there.
This is just a special group of kids. You look at everybody on our team, they're just great bunch of boys. They work hard, and they've been through so much in their time here at Wallace Rose Hill High School, and just so happy and excited for them that we get one more week together to practice and, to lift with that mentality, preparing for the next opponent. And they're just so much fun to be around. They're so much fun to work and watch them compete in the weight room, to be in the locker room when we get the opportunity to get on the White Dragons and go ride and to play. So just have no words to explain how excited I am for our kids. First of all, he's just a special young man, and I know a lot of coaches say that, and the general population and all the people out there, they're used to hearing coaches say that, but he's just a special person. He's a kid that Hurricane Florence took everything he owned except what he had on his body when they got out. I think most of the state has forgot about Hurricane Florence, but last year's spring team, we still had 11 kids on that team that weren't home. And we're still dealing with the ramifications from that storm. And he's a kid that, that really impacted his life.
Congratulations to all of the other teams that have made it. It's a special accomplishment to be playing on this weekend. And, we don't want to ever take things for granted. And we're definitely not taking this opportunity for granted this weekend to be able to play and play a great team like Wallace Rose Hill. There's only 2 2A teams left. There's not 4. So it's a little bit more special because, in the years past, it'd always be, well, if we were big 2A and we were to win it and whoever won the little 2A, the arguments were always, well, who would win between those two? Or, would we even have made it to the state championship had we been in the other division? So, yeah, it is special going back to a little bit more old school way of doing it. And it's nice to be one of the final two and one of the final 8 teams of all classifications still playing.
All right, Chris, what do you got?
All right, guys. Well, let's take a look here at the Wallace Rose Hill team on the left. And by the way, I know that you guys are kind of already crowning Shelby. And if you want to crown them, they're going to have to go through this Wallace Rose Hill team. I really like it. And by the way, we had Coach Kevin Monsinger on there.
I think it's a toss-up. I mean, like I said before, you got a team that's rushed for 7,000 yards and darn near 100 touchdowns. If they can control the ball and don't let Shelby get it, or Shelby gets a lot of 3-and-outs, it could turn the game. It happened to Huff the other night. They were up, they had a couple 3-and-outs, and Chambers got the ball back.
You're talking about the defending 2-time state champions, though, what Huff went against. Like, if you picked 5 players, never mind, we'll get back to that in a little bit. You picked 5 players, I would pick 4 players from Vance before I picked the guy from Huff. Like, if you're going to draft.
Well, Chris, tell us about this game.
Well, I really like what I heard from Coach Kevin Monsinger, one of the most well-respected coaches out of the East. He's been to state championship games with multiple teams, built a program, rebuilt a program in New Hanover, James Keenan back in the day. Coach Monsinger is one of the best of the best. I thought it was compelling that he talked about how a lot of those players are still dealing with the results of the storm that came through there a couple years ago. I mean, that is real. And anyway, Kanye Roberts, again, one of the best football players I think any of us has seen leading the country or leading the state in touchdowns. He's phenomenal. But you cannot fall asleep if you're a defense looking at Roberts there in the backfield. You got Antoine Montgomery. He's got 1,600 yards, 15 touchdowns. You got Kamon Ferrier. He's got 1,000 and about 16 touchdowns. Plus, they got a whole list of other backs that still got a bunch of yards. Quarterback Xavier Pearsall, he is solid. Very high percentage in some aspects. He's got a low percentage pass rate, but they don't throw the ball that much. But he's got 12 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, so I really like that. But that defense there for the Bulldogs, and they're certainly going to get tested when we start talking about this Shelby offense. You got Octavian Murphy, you got Josh Love, you got Tamarion Bellamy. Those are 3 of the leaders there on that defense, and I like them a lot. But they're going to be tested when you're facing the top junior quarterback in the state. In Dalen Lee. He is certainly going to be on the who's who list for Mr. Football here in the upcoming season. Dalen Lee's got 45 passing touchdowns. We talked about him all year. So he is leading that team. You got Zay Bridges, Demetrius Thompson. I think you got Jakeith Hamilton. You got Luke Williams. You got a plethora of wide receivers that is capable of taking it to the house on any play. You got that defense. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Malachi Hamrick. He was very established on our Mr. Football watch list. But, hey, we got another one of those Hollifields. I think we've had about 3 or 4 of them now come through Shelby. You got Drew Hollifield, who's a sophomore. He's all over the field on that defense, too, amongst some of the leaders. That Shelby team is really tough. And I think that Malachi and Hollifield and some of those other guys are really going to be stressed in trying to slow down that backfield of Wallace Rose Hill.
What's interesting about Shelby, though, Chris, when you look at their roster, I see a lot of sophomores and juniors on that roster. I mean, there's a ton. It's like looking at Chambers' roster. There's so many young kids. It's like this was the year you're supposed to get them. That's kind of how I feel about it. But I think this game is going to be – I don't think it's a surefire win for Shelby, Sam. I just think that a team that can score like that and is so dynamic from multiple positions, you can't just focus on one guy. It's going to cause problems. Now, Wallace Rose Hill does want to run the ball. And if Shelby can stop the run and make them throw the ball, that'll give them a big advantage. What do you think, Sam? You're on mute, Sam. Sam's on mute, Grice, so you get to go.
The one thing I'll say is that, especially when you're looking at smaller schools, a team like Shelby, they've seen teams that run the ball, a lot, and similar to a Wallace Rose Hill.
Yeah.
It's very rare for these small schools to see a team that really throws the ball around just like that. And I think that, to me, will be the difference. While they run and are the defenses face their, phone booth football and guys that are, 11 guys inside the hashes. Yeah. What are they going to do when they get 4 wide receivers, 5 wide receivers out, and you got to be able to cover that. Because if you go man against these receivers out of Shelby, you're Texas.
That's not a good recipe.
Very, very good point, Grice. Very good point.
The one thing I want to say about it is that one loss that Shelby has, it came from South Point, who just won the state championship the other week.
Was up 37-7. Ended up having a game.
And they came roaring back on it.
We're talking about South Point, South Carolina.
Yes, South Point, South Carolina.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, there you go. Hold on with the South Carolina stuff.
I didn't say.
Hold on.
You are just tonight. Wow.
I'm trying to see, because you guys have good stuff. I'm trying to save it, put it in the right place. All right, now let's take a look at the 3A game. Alex is laughing. Let's take a look at the 3A game. Everybody thinks Dudley's every favorite, but I know one coach who doesn't.
You know, this is a great opportunity for our program. We finally got back here after a 6-year stint of being away. I thought the kids did a great job this season, especially when we went 0-3. They fought back, fought through some obstacles, and turned the ship around. You know, it was tough at the beginning because we knew we were good, and I think we started reading to some press clippings at the beginning of the year. The boys saw that they ranked real high, especially against Hunt. Didn't go out there and perform like we were supposed to. So then we played a very, very good, talented Cleveland team with their running back. So that was a tough task. And then at Northeastern, we just had the turnover bugs. But just trying to keep them motivated. I think our coaching staff here had done a great job at making sure they seen the light at the end of the tunnel. Made sure we watch film showing them that, hey, we're not as bad as what it looked. If we fix some of these mistakes, stop the turnovers, go out and execute, then we can turn the ship around.
This team right here is made of good football players. You know, of course, we got Mikal Wall, who committed to Duke earlier, but we just got a lot of good football players, good young men. So it's kind of a little different from that team because, you know, you can just see off the hook, those guys were big and powerful and strong. But this team right here is just a great football team. But we just got to go out there and, you know, make sure we prepare the guys throughout this week, you know, try to pick up on some things, you know, they like to do and just make sure we are in place. And I think if we can just be in place and not be all over the place, we have a chance to slow them down a little bit.
All right. Hey, the first thing I want to say in this discussion about the Friday night game against Dudley, looking at the conversation that we heard both head football coach Steve Davis and Will Bland talk about the contrast of coaches. You've got Steve Davis, who is one of the mayors, one of the deans of coaches in the state, obviously one of the most well-respected and just most successful head coaches that's currently active in the state. And then you got Will Bland, who's an up-and-coming guy, one of the bright young guys in this state who's going to be around for a long time. Listen to what both of them said, and they both really resonate well with what their teams are coming from. Looking at this Rose team again, they were ranked number 1 in the preseason. I like them a lot. You see them right there, 5-2 in state championship game appearances. Remember that back-to-back-to-back spread stretch right there from 2003 through 2006 or 2000. I think it's 4 in a row back when they first started the subdivided playoffs back in the early 2000s. Junior quarterback Will Taylor, 3,033 yards, 31 touchdowns. That's a lot of threes, by the way. Michael Allen committed to NC State. I like him a lot. We had him as a Grice fresh face, I think. And he is just a stud, just a man among men. But they haven't really used him a lot, and they really haven't had to because of the way they spread the ball around. There you see right there. Clavon Brown, 154 tackles. That is a man-child out there on the football field. Dudley is certainly going to have to find a way around him. Notable, Rose began the season 0-3 and has won 6 straight since the 48-0 loss to New Bern back on October the 15th. Looking at Dudley, man, there ain't much really to say about Dudley other than they are just a machine. I think they got about 5,000 rushing yards, about 60 or so rushing touchdowns. They got about 3,000 or 2,500 yards passing. You got Jameer Slade, 2,100 passing, 28 touchdowns. You've got that big machine there in the backfield between Michael Shaw. You got R.J. Baker. But that D is where it's at for this Dudley Panther team. That D for Dudley is D for defense because they are just phenomenal. Jaheim Pittman, you got Logan Wright, you got Jeremiah Barnes. I mean, that is a team that can shut you down in a heartbeat. I do think this will be a competitive game. But, hey, I'm just going to say it right now. If for some reason Dudley shuts out Rose, I don't think I'd be surprised about that either, guys.
Whoa.
Yeah, like I'll give my Alex nothing to see here. Thanks, Guru.
It's like that. It's like y'all just like Rose has no shot.
No, I'm not saying that. I think Rose does.
I mean, everybody's got
that's what Grice said.
Everybody's got a shot. I mean, come on. Everybody's got a
Dudley
shot.
team may be the most complete team on both in all classes. 4A.
Y'all don't listen to me. I told you, Dudley.
If Dudley was
defensive
in the
line.
4A, they would have been in the 4th or 5th round.
That's what I'm saying. I said that at the beginning of the year. We scrimmaged them. Their D line was 4A ready. I mean, they were as big as us up front, and they were a handful even for us. Yeah. Good luck, Rose. Great job getting here. We will see that first drive if we're right here. But goodness,
Rose fans, his Twitter is Coach J Grice on Twitter.
All right, let me put this in another perspective for you here. Let me put this in another perspective for you here. See if I can use positive language to explain what everyone is saying right here.
All right.
You notice those Dudley uniforms?
Yes.
Blue and gold.
Yeah. This
team could go a few miles from its Lincoln Street campus.
Come on.
And play in Aggie Stadium and be at home. And you would think that they were the primary tenant in Aggie Stadium. That's how good this team is. And once again, that's not a knock on Rose. That is not a knock on Rose. That is an affirmation of this team's prowess and also an acknowledgement that Dudley's band would fit right in at Aggie Stadium as well. So let's join and sing. Give me that.
The show is on real. We got Sam directing, Grice playing, Alex singing. All right, let's take a look at the 4A here from the contestants.
I've said all along, I've been doing this for about 20 years now. It's just hard to get there, and we're excited to be here. The general football saying is it's difficult to beat the same team twice in one season. We're hoping that is the case. We obviously had a unique situation here in week 1 with a 3-hour lightning delay, but we're able to finish the game at about 1:30 in the morning. So we're just hoping there's not another 3-hour lightning delay. But we're looking forward to matching up with them. They're obviously very talented. After we played them in week 1, we thought, you know what, that this may be a real possibility that the both of us get back and see each other once again at the end of the year. So we're excited about it. We're looking forward to it. But I think it does help us in our preparation. Not only do we have film, but we have the experience. We know in terms of the experience of playing against them. We've got, we realize how fast they are, how athletic they are. And, we're going to try and, minimize the mistakes on our side and maximize the opportunities we have schematically.
My kids have, worked their butts off all year to put ourselves back in this position. So it's been a great feeling. Plus last week was a tough game that we pulled out in the end. So it makes it that much sweeter. We're encouraged and, we're feeling good that we can come and represent Charlotte in the state championship again. So we're coming in not, feeling like we're just representing Chambers. We feel like we're representing the whole city.
All right, y'all have heard that one song. I'm going to sing it for Chambers. All they do is win, 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 no matter what. Okay, there you go. You saw Coach Farabee. He did not look worried, by the way. I seen that there in the background. Coach Farabee, when he don't look worried, I think that Coach Nick Drew and that defense, they might better be worried. But we'll start right here on the West. Julius Chambers, 14-1. Obviously, they've got 2 championships leading up to this. Formerly as Vance High School, 2-1 in state finals appearances. Right there, you see the key. Hollywood, one of our Mr. Football finalists, 1,488 yards, 18 touchdowns. I think that is a very big-time number because they are not reliant on Hollywood to carry the ball. They've got a lot of tools out there. You've got number 1, you got KC, you got Kevin Concepcion, 10 touchdowns, 2 punt return touchdowns. Bubba Camp at quarterback. I think I've seen a big maturation in him.
And Sean now.
There you go.
And Sean now. He's growing up.
There you go. James Pearce, what can you say about him? I was talking to couple coaches who look at James Pearce, and we've talked to him. We're supposed to have him on the show tonight, who said, he projects to have NFL talent. I very rarely ever want to talk about a high school player that looks like he could go to the NFL. I said that about Power Eccles, and I'm going to say it right here about James Pearce. That guy has just unbelievable, freakish talent. Reminds me a lot of a Julius Peppers. So we're going to keep an eye on James Pearce, 14.5 sacks, 2 safeties. Notable Chambers can become the 4A class, first Charlotte team to three-peat since Mallard Creek from 13 to 15. Let's look right here at this Gibbons team, 0-2 in state championship appearances. Both of those, ironically, they did come to East Forsyth. I believe I'm right. Alex, you got
Grimsley last year.
Grimsley, that's correct, Grimsley. Connor Clark right there, you see him, 2,600 yards passing, 28 touchdowns. You've got Donovan Shepard, we've talked a lot about him. Ethan Grice there, 72 tackles, 18 sacks. I had a couple other guys right here. I did want to Will Mason. Will Mason, I've looked at him on film. Will Mason has been strong all year. Carter Searce, he has been strong all year. Gibbons right there, they got the matchup that they wanted. They played well against Chambers in that week 1 7-hour rain-delayed game. I think that they feel like they match up well. That's what they wanted. I think they're going to get it, and we're going to see how well it turns out Saturday night.
All right, we're going to have an extended discussion about Chambers and Gibbons when we get back on the flip side. We got a special surprise because Grice is going to take on Alex in a special coach versus coach about this game. Then we're going to have a discussion, and Sam is going to be Sam when we get back from finding out who are the fresh faces for this week.
All right, my man, Coach Grice. It's been a long year, but we've been able to highlight a lot of young up-and-coming talent on Fresh Faces this year. I know this is my favorite segment. I know it's yours too. So you ready to hit it?
Oh, yeah. Again, like I said, get to see some more guys that you've been telling me about that we get to expose everybody else. From Dare to Cherokee, we're going to expose you to some guys that have been doing some great things this year and guys you need to take a look at.
Well, we've got one more week of football to go. Several of these guys, we're going to highlight their seasons have been over for a week or two, a couple weeks. But we went back and really looked through the archives, and we wanted to make sure that we found some of those young players that we think are going to be stars in the upcoming years. So let's hit it here. Fresh Faces. First guy we're going to talk about is Jordan Reed. The junior, he ran for 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns over at South Garner High School. Let's take a look at the highlights and tell me what you think, Coach.
I mean, again, guy out there, 5'8", 185. He's so impactful this year with 1,188 yards and 11 touchdowns. I mean, you see a guy like this, again, he looks like he's short and stocky, but he's able to have enough speed to get out to the sideline. And again, that's something that you like to see with some of these guys that maybe a little, smaller in stature, but have a little bit of, a little bit of strength to them. Great to see his agility, and he's able to not just go on the sideline and just go out of bounds, but turn it up and find some space and get a big touchdown, get a big explosive play there.
Yeah, Jordan Reed is a 5'8", 185-pound junior. You saw that first highlight. It looks like he was running to the out-of-bounds marker, and then he turned around and went the other way, took it all the way to the house. Played for Coach Daniel Finn, who has since retired up there at South Garner. But I think that's a big-time year. And congrats to Jordan Reed, highlighting you here on Fresh Faces. So good job there. Next, we're going to go to Leonard Benfield at Henderson High School, 5'7", 140-pound junior, had 14 kick returns for 424 yards and 4 touchdowns this season. You and I both know you get it done on special teams, and he really helped his special teams out a lot.
Oh, he did. I mean, looking at this guy, he's like a human joystick. I mean, he's in one place, the next half a second, he's going to be somewhere else. So you love to see explosive plays, explosive players playing special teams. And again, we see here, he's a guy that can take a 5-yard hitch and take it for some big-time yards. So, I mean, a guy in, Hendersonville like this playing ball, he's going to be an impactful player, and he's a junior. So next year, I expect to see some big things out of this kid on special teams and also playing receiver.
Wow. And not only the shout out to Benfield, but shout out to his coach, Jim Sosby. That's a nice looking football field. They really paint that thing up. That's big time. They do it right up there in Western North Carolina. Okay, well, let's stick with another Western team. This young guy is still playing, going to be playing in the state championship game. He is a defensive back and the quarterback for Mitchell in the 1A game, and that is Ty Turberfield. 1,146 yards passing, 15 touchdowns, 4 picks, and ran the ball 2,096 yards from 37 touchdowns. This guy right here, you want to talk about a bowling ball, he's hard to get down.
Oh, he definitely is. And I like the physical quarterbacks that don't mind getting in there and getting dirty. And I mean, he's able to throw the ball, but we know, you have some great design plays by the offensive coordinator for these QB run game. And he's able to take that thing 5. But if you don't make a tackle or you're not able to get him down, it's going to go 20, it's going to go to the house. So love to see this out of our quarterbacks who are dual threats. He's going to be somebody that you're going to have to count for in the run game and the pass game.
Wow. 2 purple teams going at it, by the way, in the upcoming 1A state championship. We're really going to see how good he is taking on that Tarboro Viking machine. I can't wait to see that on Saturday. So congrats to you, Ty Turberfield. We'll certainly be watching you. And then our final fresh face of the year comes from Grice School. Defensive back Caden Jones, a junior, had 77 tackles. That's a tackling machine. 3 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. Tell me what you think about this guy, Coach.
I mean, again, I see a DB, especially as, like I said, a safety with 77 tackles. That means he's coming screaming up to make plays. I mean, as we can see right there, he's a guy, once he sees run, it triggers him to come up and make a major play to make sure he can make tackles out there on the field. So, a guy like that, having the sacks lets you know the defensive coordinator has no qualms, has no problems with putting him on the line to blitz or placing him 10, 15 yards deep. So a DB with that kind of versatility and that wants to make contact, he's going to be a problem for his team as he is laying some thunder right there, Guru.
Wow. Oh, well, there we did it again. Another week of fresh faces here on Talking Preps. I love that we went back and highlighted some of these young guys. Yes, their season's over, but hey, they're going to be primed and ready. They're going to work hard in the offseason. They're going to hit the weight room, 7-on-7s, everything coming up. I think we'll hear from these guys and a few more in this upcoming season.
Definitely. I can't wait to see them. Those guys were juniors, so they're coming back next year. Maybe can they make the fresh face to Grice's gyms to Mr. Football jump? I think 1 or 2 of them may.
I definitely think one of them will. There could be another couple, 2 in there as well. So anyway, for Coach Grice, I'm the Guru. Fresh faces. We're going to do it again next week. The championships are upon us, but we're going to keep talking football as long as Langston will let us. So, hey, that's it.
Let's go.
Football season's year-round now. Chambers fans, you knew we weren't going to have a Chambers show without Gary Richmond. You knew we weren't going to do it. But Gary, you got to hold your thoughts. We'll have an extended group discussion on Chambers Gibbons. But first, we got a special coach versus coach with Alex, who's representing the East, and Grice, who's representing the West. And we're going to let them battle it out when we get back from this.
All right, guys, we've got a special mini camp. Oh, were you there?
No, I said we got new graphics. I tell you always get nervous when they spend money on this, Guru. I'm sorry.
No kidding. All right, there we got me in the middle. Got the man. We got the other man right there. So here we go. We got a mini coach versus coach segment right here with Alex and Grice. Did a virtual coin flip, and Alex, I'm going to let you receive. And anyway, first question
I like
here.
to defer.
He wants to get on D. You see my name at the bottom, though. Hey, come on, Guru. Hey,
I always defer.
That's fine. You can get on D. I get on offense.
Okay,
I'm comfortable there, baby.
Get on D.
Hold on.
Right,
Here we go.
hold on.
Let's go, Langston.
First question is, does Gibbons have a real home field advantage playing at NC State right across the campus? But, hey, before I let you guys answer this, I want to drop this video clip so we can hear what the coaches had to say.
I'm not sure how many times in the history of high school football across the country has a team walked across the street to play in a state championship at a college venue. So our mode of transportation is going to be our 2 feet. We're looking forward to it.
It's going to be a tough game. It's hard to beat someone twice. We've been in that situation before, and that they're in. And they're a well-coached football team. So, we're not taking them lightly. We got to prepare. We got to play fundamentally sound. and we got to play Julius Chambers football. Played them early this year in a barn burner. So we know we got to bring to the table to pull off a second victory over top of them. But as far as the home field advantage, we've talked about that. So we know, what we're facing. They're going to have a lot of fans. They're going to be pumped up. And I think it's a big deal for them. But we've played well on the road since I've been here. And honestly, I think we play better on the road. So we're going to go in with the mentality that we're playing at their home place to give ourselves an edge going in, that we're battling against the odds.
All right, Coach. I love it. I love matching the smug. Oh, we're just walking across the street with, oh, we play better on the road. I just love the matching, just smug. Like, we can do this. We've been here before. But again, hey, 3 reasons why Charlotte and the West is going to retain its dominance over these inferior East teams in whatever A that there may be. First, hey, we call the QB for Chambers Anshawn Campbell. His nickname is Bubba, but I think after that Huff game, we've got to go back to using Anshawn because he grew up a lot. I think he will continue to play well in this. I think, playing against Huff and showing what he did and showing his mettle in that fourth quarter, I think he was 12 of 13 maybe for 100-plus yards in the fourth quarter, out-dueling the North Carolina commit from Huff, Tad Hudson, really showing that he's grown up in this year. And again, while he had a huge mark to meet in meeting Austin Greer, I think he did well and on his way to etching his own piece of the Chambers legacy and dynasty and showing his contribution. Oh, and he's got another year coming. So he's going to continue to play well. Second, hey, Alex, you go to the concerts, you go to, the OJs, Ozzy Brothers when they come out here. Don't you hate when they wait for those songs that you want to hear? I want to hear it now. I don't want to wait 2 hours later when Ron's voice ain't the same. He's not crooning as well. They're not playing the instruments the same. Chambers is going to play the greatest hits early. You're going to get a shot to KC, that inside zone run to Hollywood. You're going to get Armon Wright, Sean Walker, all these receivers in there. James Pearce, they're going to move him all around, get him around on the edge with a good blitz and make sure to test those tackles to see if they learn from the first game. Chambers is going to come out giving you their best shot early, especially against Gibbons, and especially the way that first game went. I think you're going to see a big play happen within that first drive. The third one, this team fights adversity better than any other team I think you can see. What team in their first couple weeks had to play a game that didn't end until 1:30 away from home, fighting all the refs, all of the nasty things that were reportedly or allegedly directed in the Chambers kids' direction, all of these things that occurred, they still fight and continue to do well. Oh, and they had to go to Richmond, Virginia the next week and go get a win against one of the top teams in Virginia. They fight against adversity. The laundry list is just enormous of the things they did last week against one of the number one team in the nation, or sorry, in the state. I got excited. Number one team in the state. They came back 21-7 in the game. Guru left me. Guru gave me the handshake, gave me the hug, and said, "I'll see you later," and had to come back and say, "Oh, shoot, what's the score?" It was that kind of game. We all thought they were Texas Toast. They rose from the dead, Lazarus out, and showed you why Julius Chambers is going to win this game because of their adversity from the last game. Alex, go ahead and tell me some lies and things you came up with to make it sound good for TV.
Well, first and foremost, in terms of the question of home field advantage, I'd like to commend both Stephen Wright and Glenwood Farabee. If you look at and listen to what they said, and more importantly, the tone of their comments, neither of them are concerned about that. If there was any concern whatsoever, and I can attest to the fact because I have walked this route myself many times, it is very, very different walking from the Cardinal Gibbons Stadium to Carter Finley Stadium, walking on foot. The fact that Cardinal Gibbons is going to do that, Stephen Wright ain't concerned about this home field deal. You listen to what Glenwood Farabee said, he's not concerned about it. Neither of them are concerned about it. And I want to commend both coaches for being unconcerned about something that is not a factor at all when it comes down to it. Also, I'd like to point out that Chambers has played for and won a state championship in Carter Finley Stadium. Cardinal Gibbons has not. But at the end of the day, both coaches, per their tones of their comments, have shown that this is a non-factor for either of them. So if the coaches feel that way, let's move on. Now, as far as 3 reasons why Cardinal Gibbons can win this game. Reason number 1, the Cardinal Gibbons secondary will have to be aggressors, very aggressive against Chambers' speedy receivers. Now, another thing about Nick Drew's defense is Nick Drew was a defensive back himself in college at Campbell University. So his relationship with an understanding of the defensive secondary is enhanced by his firsthand perspective. Cardinal Gibbons will have to be aggressive. It has the players to do that, led by the likes of Will Mason and Jamil Tucker and others. And you can get in situations and show some different looks. But the secondary will have to be aggressive and come out and set the tone as aggressors. They can't give cushions against the Chambers speedy wide receivers, and they're going to have to play tight coverage and look to make plays. And the Gibbons secondary can do that. Okay, the second thing that's got to happen and can happen is that Gibbons will have to share the rushing load on offense, even with the 2,000-plus yard back in Donovan Shepard, who was right on the outside in terms of being in the Mr. Football mix. I want everyone to realize that someone like a Donovan Shepard not being in that finalist group is a testament to just how elite those finalists are. So just keep it in that perspective. So even with the 2,000-yard back, who's very, very durable, a record NCHSA record-setting back, he's very durable. But Cardinal Gibbons has multiple offensive backs, whether we're talking about a Ryan Ziegler or whether we're talking about a Blake Raphael, or in short yardage situations, lining up two-way player and defensive lineman fullback Joshua Stone King to be in that position. They're going to have to share the rushing load. Donovan Shepard being counted on or looking for 30-plus carries against this Vance defensive front with the likes of James Pearce pressuring from the outside. Gibbons will have to share the rushing load on offense. The Crusaders showed they could do that against Rolesville, so they're going to have to do that once again. And then the last point is mishaps from not only the first game, but I want to tie that in to Gibbons' 2 previous state final appearances. Before what seemed to be like a 12-hour delay in the first Gibbons-Chambers game earlier this year, right before that delay began, Gibbons had a turnover that led to a touchdown. Now, turn the clock back to Gibbons' last 2 state final appearances, the one against East Forsyth in 2019 and the one against Grimsley last spring. Gibbons had a fumble that led to an East Forsyth touchdown right before the first half ended. Last spring, Gibbons had an interception that led to a Grimsley touchdown right before the first half ended. So avoiding those kinds of mishaps, something crazy happening right before halftime that leads to a score, or right before a 12-hour delay in the game, Gibbons has to avoid those things happening. And if they do that, they can be in position for the school's first football state championship.
All right. Great response there, Alex. And let's look at this Chambers versus Cardinal Gibbons breakdown. I don't really know where I'm at on the list. Is this the group discussion?
Group discussion, yeah.
Group discussion.
Come on, Gary.
Gary.
Come on, Gary.
What, y'all waiting on me? I got to be called on.
Yeah,
Come on.
go ahead. There you go.
One shot.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see your note, Langston.
Go ahead, Gary. What's going to happen?
This
These
gonna
young
happen.
people. These young people.
Chambers will lead at the half, and they will blow them out in the second half, and that'll be 3 in a row. Or 1, if you want to say Chambers first, since they're no longer Vance. I don't care how you want to describe it, but it's not going to be a close game unless Foot Locker gets involved like it did the first time. Foot Locker gets involved, then it might be closer than 21 points. But Chambers is winning regardless.
So Gary's leaning more into what happened before Chambers the break, and Chambers got tired and hungry, and they were winning, I think 35-7 or so, whatever it was. Grice, do you see that? Chris, do you see that, or do you think it's going to be closer this time?
I mean, I don't think it's going to be closer this time. They're hungry. It's playoff time. Those guys like literally run around like lions. They're warriors. They're going to do exactly what Gary said. They're going to lead by the half, and by the second half, it might get ugly. Now, if Gibbons, can coach their tail off like Alex says they can and makes it a tight game, I'd be very impressed. I really would, but I just don't see that happening, because if we did a draft right now, if we did a fantasy football draft right now, there might be about 7 guys that I take from Chambers before I do Gibbons' team, and that's no disrespect. They did a really good job getting there.
Actually, like that
was disrespectful. That was disrespectful.
That is. I mean, I think that a lot of people are discounting the second half of that game, and again, there are some mitigating factors that that cause that game to be a little closer. But Gibbons has some great players, and I mean, you think about the running back; they have not seen a 2,000-yard rusher this season.
Hey, Grice, let me take
back to this. Gary, I told you that first game. I told you the Huff game last week was going to be the most 50-50 game I saw, and it was until a minute and a half, minute and a half in the fourth quarter. I think this game, definitely has the potential to be, a 1-2 score game. It's going to matter, like I said, in that kind of middle 4-minute period, the last 2 to 3 minutes of the first half, the first 2 to 3 minutes of the second half. If Gibbons, again, as Alex alluded to, can avoid some of those mistakes, they'll be fine. But one thing I think that's good in Gibbons' favor is they'll let QB Connor Clark and kind of let him loose and allow him to throw the ball to some of those receivers. If they're able to make some big plays on the sophomore corners of Chambers, they can do some big things. I think that's one of the things we saw Huff come out with early and show success. Markel Quick had a nice slot fade for a touchdown very early, and I think Greer and I looked at each other like, oh boy, we might have some issues here.
And Grice, I agree with you there, but the problem is when you go back to pass too much against Chambers, number 10s come around the end. And
I don't think they go back to pass.
Exactly. Why would you want to throw the ball a whole lot?
That led to a turnover and a touchdown later on in the game. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I don't know why you want to throw the ball a lot. Like, I still. I think Cannon, the defense coordinator for Chambers right now, has really came into his own during the playoff time. He's done some amazing adjustments. I saw the Porter Ridge game. I was very impressed with what he was doing. This game at Huff, I was very impressed with what he did. He did an overload set, and he was bringing Pearce off the edge. And a lot of times he was unblocked, or he was blocked by the running back, and they never adjusted it. And I think he's going to have a game plan. And if they want to throw the ball, you're going to see a lot of 10 coming around the edge, and he can make dynamic plays. That's what I'm saying. They live off of these explosive plays, and I've never seen a team have so many explosive plays throughout a whole game. They do it all the time. And Gibbons, I watched them on film. They're really good. They're very talented, very sound. I just think that Chambers is just so explosive, and they're in their own. It's not like you're gonna sneak up on them. It's the state championship. They know it too. And so they're going to be playing hard. It's going to be tough to defeat them.
All right, Alex. So for all these people watching the show right now saying there's a bunch of Charlotte guys jumping on Chambers thinking the East team has no hope. And why are they wrong?
Well, the first thing I'd like to commend Sam for his last Lions reference, talking about how Chambers.
You heard that too, huh?
Chambers is like hungry lions.
There you go. Come on, Stone brand.
I got to give
it. Tell Grice to be quiet.
Sam's doing a great job. I got to give it to him. So kudos to Sam on that. Now, as for the people talking about this Charlotte Raleigh deal, all right, let's put it in this perspective. Statistically and historically, before Wake Forest made its championship run in 2016, 17, and 18, the tail of the tape beginning in 2000 from Independence to Butler to Mallard Creek to Vance/Chambers, other than those Wake Forest years, the tail of the tape spoke of Charlotte Mecklenburg's prowess in high school football. There's no question about that. Now, what that did for the East as evidenced by Wake Forest, was it created a situation where the East knew it had to ascend to another level and be competitive, and the East did it defensively. Wake Forest's teams won with defense. That last Wake Forest championship was 9-7 over Vance, now Chambers. So what you're seeing in a team like Cardinal Gibbons is a program that's following, yes, very potent offensively, but embracing a commitment to defensive excellence, as we've discussed all season long and discussed earlier this evening with defensive coordinator Nick Drew and the prowess of his staff. Is Cardinal Gibbons has embraced the vitality of high-level defense to put them in a position to do this. So that being said, that does not eradicate Charlotte Mecklenburg's prowess. What it does is it shows how Eastern North Carolina 4A football teams have adopted their own paradigm to ascend to another competitive level and find a different way to match up and have winning opportunities with Charlotte Mecklenburg powers. Those things being said, both teams are going to give winning efforts on Saturday and let the chips fall where they may.
Chris, you get the final word here. Who's right?
Well, I think this game could go one of about 3 or 4 different ways, and I can agree with all of you guys. Gary might have said it the best. If Chambers comes out there, if they win the toss or if they get the ball first and, Hollywood gets that outside zone and takes it 78 yards for a score like he did in the first series against Huff, then it may be bye-bye. It could be the backbreaker. But if Gibbons can come in there with that Nick Drew-led defense, as Alex likes to talk about, and they can hold Chambers to a 3-and-out, or they can force a punt, or they can force a turnover, and they can just hang around in this game for a while, then I do think that this Chambers team, if they got in a really, really close game with Gibbons, then I think Gibbons could stick around and maybe hold it. But I really think that it's going to be close early. I think it's going to be a competitive game going into the third quarter. But ultimately, and unless – I hate to use this word, but like Gary says, unless Foot Locker gets involved or something, I see Chambers probably pulling away late. I think it's going to be a competitive game, but I do think Chambers is the best team. But the best teams don't always win. It's who plays the game the best. So we're going to find out.
No doubt.
That sounds nice.
Yeah. But anyway, hey, man, I said we're in pre-show. What does that mean?
East wants to respect, win some games. Man, don't go 0-8 this year.
What was it before the lightning delay?
But we're in 3 shot. We know what time it is. Let's go.
Yeah, lock the door.
That's fine.
Welcome to another edition of
All right, guys. Well, hey, here we are, Coach versus Coach. At least one last time. I don't know how many more times we're going to get to do that here during the year, but we're going to take advantage of it right now. Coach versus Coach. Coach Griner, I'm going to give you the toss right here. You want to kick? You want to receive? Defer? What we're going to do tonight?
Well, I'm going to show Alex how it's done. I'm going to defer right now. And, I felt like he got a butt whooping from Grice, but it's okay. I'm going to handle this right now.
Well, Grice, he's deferring. I'm assuming that does mean you want to receive.
That does mean I do want to receive.
All right. First question right here coming to you, Coach Grice. Should the Shrine Bowl, the Carolinas, come back to Charlotte in 2022?
Nah, I don't think so. I think, their time, has been good. I think you're seeing a lot of alternatives that, unfortunately for them, have stepped in their place that's suitable for our future. I think, one thing that we're seeing, one of the great things about, the social media era and some of the unprecedented coverage of this state is that we're getting more games to, and the chances to represent more athletes. I mean, we see with fresh faces, and what I always say, we're going from Dare to Cherokee, guys in areas that would never get coverage or guys that would never get, the publicity. we're able to highlight. There are other places that, showcase these athletes as well. There are other combines where these guys are participating, 7-on-7s. There are so many more ways for us to know about players. And I thought that the Shrine Bowl did a great job in the past of highlighting some of those guys, highlighting some of those coaches from areas that maybe don't get as much of the publicity as metropolitan areas do. Nowadays, we're seeing the emergence now of the Carolina Bowl. We still have the presence of the East-West All-Star Game. We have, the Queen City Bowl, and just these other opportunities that we're seeing. I think South Carolina has something north-south that's going on in Myrtle Beach, if I'm not mistaken. You're seeing these other areas that are providing this coverage. Trust me, I do understand. I am from, this area, played high school football in Greensboro. I do understand and appreciate the importance of the Shrine Bowl, but I do think with this time off, they've kind of lost a little bit of traction. So, understand and appreciate what they've done. But I think now we have other games to showcase a lot of the athletes that maybe didn't get showcased throughout the Shrine Bowl.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that, the Shrine Bowl has dropped off a little bit. These other avenues are doing a great thing for kids, and they're being successful with it. But I think that's the reason why the Shrine Bowl should come back to Charlotte. Show them who boss, show them who started this whole thing. I think they do a great job because all those kids get to be, doing community service throughout the week. They're out of school for the whole week. They still got to make up their, their assignments and things of that nature, but they get to really bond with one another from different schools. I think their setup was amazing, and I would love it for it to come back to Charlotte because it was thriving during that time. And personal reasons, I would like to be able to go to some of the practices and not have to worry about a long drive. So it'd be great if it came back to Charlotte. So come on back.
Yeah. Someone who's worked at the Shrine Bowl for about the past 10 or so years, that game is certainly near and dear to my heart. And it is the nation's oldest original high school football all-star game, formed right here in Charlotte in 1937, the Charlotte Fire Department of all places. And they've got the hospital, they take the kids, and it's so special. So you do want to see it come back. You want to see it thrive. You want to see it be successful. I can agree with both of you on so many different fronts. I hope it comes back. But ultimately, it's just kind of right now, it's just kind of a wait and see approach. We hope that it can, but we'll see. Coach Griner, though, this one here is coming to you. Question number 2, Coach versus Coach. Did playing in the spring make the fall football season better? And should we always have spring football? And I think I know your answer.
I think it made it better in certain areas just because, we're so relevant in the spring. Everybody's used to it, but it also hurt the fall because if someone got a serious injury in the spring, they couldn't play in the fall. That's what was the devastating part of it. So you saw some really good football players that played a lot that went down, one being at Huff that was in our, Mr. Football Talk. Now you had other teams have the same issues, but we definitely need to have some type of form like South Carolina does or surrounding states for spring football. And I think that we've learned a little something from the COVID year playing in the spring. So I would like to see something of that nature.
Yeah, playing in the spring did absolutely nothing to make the fall better. I think that it even hurt some of the guys that, we looked at as some of the best players. You look at a Byron Brown. I think he came on strong, but goodness, imagine the year that he could have had he not come into the year. Obviously would look like him being still hurt or affected by the injury he had in the state championship game. I don't know that for sure, so forgive me if that's not true. But for something clicked back in him, or he got something going that he didn't have early on. You're seeing a lot of programs that seem to start slow. We talked about Jades Rose. I don't know specifically if that was the reason, but a lot of things that that because of playing spring ball, teams started slow in the fall that I think would have if they had a fall season prior, they would have had that time to rest and recover. You look at a team like Chambers. How incredible are they for the fact that they've played, borderline 35 games or so now in a calendar year. You talk about, we're at 48 weeks maybe or so, and they played 35 of those that have been a game week for them. That's an insane amount of, of games on those young kids' bodies. So, I do think we should have some form of spring activity that's a little more rigorous than we do currently, but I don't think it should be spring tackle. These kids have been affected. Sam talked about that. That was one of the most heartbreaking things to see, a kid in Huff, Huff's Curtis Neal. You could see the passion even in the junk talk and pregame from him, that it just hurt his soul. You could feel the hurt that he had, that he wasn't able to play in that game. And it breaks your heart, man. It really just broke my heart to see that, man. And I know that kid wanted to give it all out on the field one more time for his team.
Yeah, I was a little scared when I saw him. I mean, he looks like a grown man. Like you see Curtis Neal, he full out.
I think some of the grown men forgot he was a kid. Some of the conversation he looked like one.
Hey. Yeah.
And just to throw it out there, man, I do think spring football is needed and I want to see it. But remember, we played a 7-game regular season stretch plus 4 rounds of the playoffs. A nice condensed 10-day practice session where you do have some minimal contact, but, just enough to evaluate and get some strength and some playing time under those young guys, I think, will help. We do not need to be seeing 11 weeks of spring football, though. That is without a doubt. But, hey, Coach Grice, this one right here, staying with you. Final question here of coach versus coach. The South Carolina high school football finals were last week, and we saw some of the best teams there. Is South Carolina prep football still ahead of North Carolina, or has North Carolina caught up?
Oh, we're here. I mean, I alluded to it earlier. We faced Gaffney early in the year down in the reservation, kids all wide-eyed and everything. We played Huff, we played Chambers. I definitely, the 5A state champions in South Carolina, Gaffney, and Chambers and Huff are on par on the same level. Actually, the state, the Max Preps, national rankings has Huff and Chambers ranked considerably higher than Gaffney, and I'll be interested to see if they're higher than Dutch Fork now with Gaffney beating Dutch Fork. So you're saying in the North Carolina, South Carolina area, you'll have the best football team potentially being Julius Chambers, and potentially having 2 football teams in Huff and Julius Chambers ahead of any South Carolina team. I think that's the better evidence than any that you could point to explain how it's caught up. You look at the 4A state champions at South Point. I mean, how many Charlotte coaches that were just on our side of the border friggin', a few months ago or a year ago that were over here leading teams to long playoff runs, state championships and things of that sort. You're seeing so many of these South Carolina teams being led by North Carolina coaches that it's hard for me to say that South Carolina football is ahead because those guys were just over here. So, I think that North Carolina is just on par with a lot of these South Carolina programs. We saw Joe Evans even, those guys beating Catawba Ridge, a team that made it into the playoffs and really dominating them with, QB Jaden Davis not able to score a touchdown against that South Mac defense. So plenty of examples. I'm telling you, North Carolina's right here. South Carolina still has some great programs, but North Carolina is right there in lockstep with South Carolina football.
Yeah, I think South Carolina has better traditional football teams. I think that their facilities are still way beyond North Carolina. That's the one difference maker. But playing wise, I actually don't think North Carolina caught up. I think we surpassed them. I think that if you go down the list, I think Huff or Chambers or maybe even Cardinal Gibbons, but definitely, Huff and Chambers would win the 5A state championship hands down. I wouldn't second guess it one bit. If you go to the 4A, I think Dudley could win that. If you start talking about Shelby, whatever division that would be in South Carolina, I think they would win that. So if that's the case, then who's better? North Carolina is right now football-wise. I just think that South Carolina has figured out how much football, how important it is, and they treat it like it is. Like they give them 10 assistant paid coaches. They have facilities to take care of kids. They have film rooms, all these different things, and we still have not figured that aspect out because we want to pay for so many roads and stuff instead of schools.
Yeah. Sam, you made a great point. And in terms of facilities, definitely in terms of coaching pay, mostly in terms of community support, it's not close. But I got to say it right here. It is not even close. And I mean, North Carolina's talent and North Carolina's level of competition far surpasses what I've seen in South Carolina. Remember, I've called South Carolina and North Carolina Shrine Balls for about 10 years on ESPN. I've studied South Carolina talent very closely. There's a couple teams, 2 or 3 years ago, those Dutch Fork teams, they were certainly on the national level. This year's Dutch Fork team, I was on the sideline of their loss to Gaffney Friday, Saturday night. Just not even close. It was not your typical Tommy Knotts coach team. I hated to kind of see Coach Knotts fade down the stretch, but that Gaffney team, Grice seen them. They were the real deal. But no, in terms from, and I want to take it to the words of what Coach Aaron Brand told Grice and I on Talking Preps OT a few months ago. The North Carolina talent is far better. Now he said coaching in South Carolina is better, and I think that has a lot to do with because they pay coaches better. But I think talent. You look at the SEC roster, look at the ACC roster. North Carolina is up there.
Grinder said you pay him $15,000. Hey, I'm coaching my butt off, baby. Come on.
Golly. One last thing. Remember, Mallard Creek went to go play Dutch Fork when they were very stellar. It ended up being a tie game, and they traveled all the way to, Dutch Fork to do that.
That game had finished.
It didn't finish, but
I know, but if it had,
win the state championship that year. No, you see what I'm saying?
That might have been the best Mallard Creek team too. That's the crazy thing. I mean, that team was really good. That team was really good. I mean, not becomes a lot with great coaching. Gary, you haven't said a whole lot. Just what's on your mind? Just
come on, Gary.
Give us something.
Well, we had our little group text on what was it, Friday night and Saturday afternoon, like we do it. And y'all told me I'd be on the one shot, but I didn't realize I was gonna have a game tonight. But at Hickory Ridge. But here's a one shot, and I'm gonna tell the public what I told y'all, and you agree with me. Huff choke.
I think
choke. Okay, that's what happened. I hate to say that. I'm not saying about kids. The staff did. The staff did. Now I got a lot of football guys on here. When you get the ball back and it's tied up, okay, what's the first play or second play you should run in a 2-minute offense when you don't want the opponent to get the ball last? A draw, a screen, something that's going to keep the clock running.
Yes.
Without going Gary Richmond with it, the one thing that was startling to me, and I said it to Guru on the side, is that there was one side with a D1 quarterback, and there was one side with a junior quarterback in his first year starting. Mm-hmm. And the way they were treated, to me, was the opposite. One was 11 for 12 in the fourth quarter. The other seemed to be treated very conservatively. And I think
he was 11 for 12 in the fourth quarter.
I think that was what it said. That's an observer or something to that effect. Either way, I mean, if I saw that somewhere, he played stellar. I would have thought that the D1 quarterback would have been treated the way Anshawn Camp was.
That one pass he threw to Concepcion on third and whatever. I mean, that was a perfect pass.
3rd and 32 will be 2nd and 26 the way it is for Georgia fans for Huff fans.
Oh my goodness! That pass and that route and the speed. If you see the play when Concepcion turns on the speed and just separates.
Oh yeah,
Ethan Johnson, number 21, is one of the best corners in this conference in this area.
Kevin Concepcion is an SEC receiver. Period.
Now, hey, I wish I made it that far to compete in a game like that. Let's get that right. Those coaches did a great job getting there. Things I saw in the game that I was concerned with, though, everybody's going to be in, oh, you could have done this. Everybody's going to say that. But they were playing a lot of cover zero, Chambers was. And I didn't see slant. I didn't want to see any slants or rub routes. I kept consistently seeing, their quarterback doing 3-step drop passing from the shotgun, which technically is a 5-step drop, okay? And they were bringing overload pressure with the Pearce side, and they never like they do this split back gun. I don't know why they didn't put both the backs on the same side of the overload, at least help it out, chip it, or do something, because they were getting to him fast because he didn't have time to throw.
I have a feeling Cardinal Gibbons will make that adjustment on Saturday.
I could.
You got to see. It was like the whole fourth quarter. Huff is trying to get the clock to run. You can see, and I'm watching it on computer because I had a game that night. But I'm watching the second half, and I was like, they're just hoping. Come on, clock, run.
No, it's hard when you had a lead, and looking at some of the highlights, those guys were clearly celebrating. Look at the clock, it's over, and then they make it.
And Chambers kept playing. I don't want to say, okay, well, Huff laid down. That's not what I mean.
No.
The Chambers kids had to keep playing.
Yeah,
but it's the job of the Huff coaches to put them in position to be successful, especially that late in the contest.
In their defense, they were struggling to run the football, so they probably felt like.
Well, the last piece I have here, 2 times, I said this Guru there, 2 times the ball was on Chambers' 34-yard line.
Yeah. I
have an all-state kicker in Hoosier. Said his name, I think. I'm going to at least try one of those. I saw him try a 45-yard field goal versus East Forsyth on that first drive in about 20 degrees colder, and that was good from about 55. Mm-hmm. He makes one of those field goals. I think
changes the game.
I think this game's over. Yeah, 2 chances, and they punted.
And defensively, that's the strong suit. I thought Huff had the best defense by far in the state this year. And it looked like that for about 3/4 of this game. And there was a couple of big plays. I think it was like 3rd and 22 or 3rd and 23 or something like that, where KC caught a huge pass and he got behind the DBs. And I was
I think Huff got the lead, and I think in their mind they thought the game was over, and then all of a sudden Chambers scores, and they couldn't restart the engine. And I think that's something they'll learn from. They always say you got to kind of lose in the finals before you can get over the hump. I mean,
I don't know if y'all have ever seen that movie Shaft with Samuel L. Jackson. And he goes into the heart of the enemy gang, and he balls up his fist and they act like he getting ready to hit one of them, and the dude flinched. Well, Huff flinched, and they say, "Don't flinch, man, don't flinch." They flinched, and Chambers was like.
And I think that's something they'll learn from. I think, Vance was very similar. They played Catholic, had a chance to win, missed an extra point, that could have changed the game. So I think Huff will take a step. They have a lot of players coming back next year. Markel Quick is great. Ted Hudson is great. They got defenders coming back. So it's, the same conversations we're having right now about Chambers and Huff, we're going to have next year. Because Chambers brings back every offensive starter, I think, except one. And a lot of defensive players. So they're going to be two really, really good teams next year.
It's the replay.
But
all those keys coming back in Chambers. It's the replay.
Well, Grice just put something in the chat. I'm going to repeat this. It might change it. Might change the scenario a little bit. But first, we got to get through a state championship game, and it's going to be a great game. I think. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, like Sam was saying. I think it's going to be a fourth quarter game. I'm not sure who's going to win. I do think
what is a blowout considered? How many points is a blowout?
14 or more in a state championship game.
I'd say 3 scores.
Oh, 21. You play video. You play
Madden. I just think that if Gibbons can get
it's
an early
17 or greater, that's 3 scores. So.
Gibbons gets an early lead or is tied, and the fans get into it because it's going to be 3-1 fans for Gibbons. I think it's going to make a difference. I really do. And Chambers has a really bad habit of getting a 30-yard run called back for a 10-yard hold, and that happens a lot. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But should be a great week of championship games, guys. Enjoyed the show today. Want to let everybody know that we're going to give out Mr. Football, the biggest award in North Carolina, tomorrow on Talking Preps Overtime. Tune in at 8 o'clock. Wherever you're watching this right now, you can watch it tomorrow. Observer Twitter, News Observer Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, on the website. Be sure to be there at 8 o'clock. We're going to have special interviews with Chambers coach Glenwood Fairby, Shelby's Mike Wilbanks, and Stephen Wright of Cardinal Gibbons. They were really good in interviews, so you guys should look out for that. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I was just going to tell the Huff faithful, don't make the same mistake that Myers Park did, that you fire your coach because he lost one game to the state champs. You got a great coaching staff at Huff, had a bad night, but it's still a great coaching staff, a great program. But don't make the same mistake that Myers Park did, thinking they were a coach away from a state championship.
Well, I think Matt Jenkins is one of the best coaches around, and Chachi and all those guys do a really good job on defense. I think, this game will help them down the road, when they face this kind of game again.
Because ultimately it comes down to players. You got to have dudes.
They always have dudes. Pastor Gray made the point a long time ago. They always have dudes. Chris, you get the final word before we got here.
Oh, I get the final word.
No, I mean, not before we go to the star, you get the final word.
Oh, okay. Well, man, I'm
contractually obligated to give Sam the final word. That.
Well, I don't have anything prepared, but I do want to say, I mentioned it during the coach versus coach that I was on the sideline there for the Dutch Fork versus Gaffney 5A state championship game down there in Columbia. Incredible environment for football. They moved it out of the University of South Carolina Stadium, an 85,000 seat venue, and moved it into the 12 to 15,000 seat Benedict Stadium just down the road. You know what? 12, 15,000 seats, very similar to an Elon, very similar to an A&T, and the environment was unbelievable. But, it was tough to see Coach TK, Coach Tommy Nuts, following that one, being a fan of Charlotte, North Carolina football. They just didn't quite have a quarterback this year like they've had. But, just what an incredible run. 62 straight wins coming into that game. The game that started that 62-game stretch was the tie game that wasn't completed against Mallard Creek. So that was kind of good to see the GOAT down there in action. You got to wonder how many more years of coaching he's got left at Dutch Fork. Does he move on to Georgia or Texas or Florida or somewhere else like that? Hard to say. He had a very tough year. Had one of his best players collapse and pass away.
I'm like Scottie Pippen on that commercial. Come on home.
Yep. But anyway, guys, I always say this: that there ain't no better entertainment value for families than going to a high school football game. It's better than going to the movies. It's better than anything else. We still got 4 big-time games being played this weekend in Raleigh and Chapel Hill. So even if you're not a fan, if your team didn't make it, man, go up there and buy a ticket and support these kids. It's going to be some phenomenal action. I think it's worth the thing. I might even be out there signing autographs with Grice out there. So come out and see us, and let's just watch some football.
All right, Blaine, you asked when we're going to start covering basketball. We're covering it every day, man. Go to charlotteobserver.com. It's in there every day. In terms of the show, we'll start doing it next week. I'll have the guru of basketball, Rick Hughes, on next week with the guru of football. So you guys get 2 gurus next week. And Alex will have his girl state rankings finally, and we'll talk about Mr. and Ms. basketball watch list. So the same craziness you see in football, we'll have in basketball. We'll get a little bit started on it next week. But now it's time for the man to get in his one shot, the star of the show.
I am none of those things, but I will definitely have a little last word. I'll talk about the star, Brahim Murphy. Tune in Saturday, Army-Navy game. Blessed to go down to the game. Young Life that represents West Charlotte and the West Side schools. They are actually paying for my flight and Coach Cam's flight and another coach, Coach Zapp, that we all coached Brahim together at Harding, and they were like, y'all need to go check it out. So it's going to be a special night. Get to watch. I mean, I've been to a lot of games. I've been to, Penn State, Michigan. I've been to tons of college games, but nothing compares to the Army-Navy game. So tune in, watch number 8, Brahim Murphy. He's going to be a big-time player out there. It's my son. I'm so excited. So I can't wait to talk about it next week after they win and sink Navy.
Yeah, that's what's up. People ask me all the time, what's your favorite story that you've ever written? And it's not because Sam's on the show. My most favorite story I've ever written was about a high school football coach who adopted his quarterback because the quarterback was having a bad time. And that story went national, went on CNN and ESPN and everywhere else. And, Sam's going to be on a national show. I don't know if he wants to talk about it because of that. But it's, that was one that really got to me. That's how I got to know Sam from doing that story, actually.
And it's got nothing to do with me. And if, the guys that know me really personally, everybody would have done the same thing in my situation. I saw a kid that I fell in love with. He was a great kid and a very small individual, about 110 pounds. Yeah, he was little. But he had a heart that outweighed his whole entire body. And my wife made the big decisions. It was a God thing. God, we're big believers in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And he made a big, big deal to let us know that we need to make this happen. And to be honest with you, we're more blessed to have him in our family than, we were for him. And so it's very special.
All right, guys. I always promise to be off by 9:30. I know it's going to be heavy this weekend. I know we promised James Pearce. We had some technical difficulties, so I couldn't get him on. Hopefully we get him on maybe next week. Incredible talent. I will be writing a story about him, so you get to read about him, I think, on Friday morning. But make sure you tune in tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. We're giving out the biggest award in the state. Chris and Grice have worked super, super hard to come up with we started with 20-some-odd kids. We're down to 3. So you can see who wins the award tomorrow night. Want to thank everybody for being on the show. That's Coach Griner. I'm Langston. That's Gary. That's the one who goes at Chambers. That's him right there. And there's Chris, the #1 voice of high school football, Alex Bass-Contrarian, and my man, Coach Grice, who was unemployed looking for a job. So you guys have an offensive coordinator, quarterback, any of that kind of stuff. We got the guy for it. He can put points on the board. So you don't have to worry about
collecting unemployment.
Don't have to worry about fourth-quarter comebacks if you hire Grice.
Hey, don't let it fool you, Grice. 1,000 people.
Aaron got fans out there.
Who was that?
Next Gen highlights. They do great work.
There to go.
They film a lot of high school games. All right, guys, we'll catch you tomorrow. Talking Preps Overtime next Tuesday, right back here on Talking Preps North Carolina. We got a super team coming in 2 weeks. Coaches, get your nominations in because when the team comes out, we don't want you sending emails saying you forgot about mine. All right?
You got mine, right?